Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. My name is Ken Delaney. I'm the industry liaison for the Freedom Center here at NC State. Does anybody know the Freedom Center? Okay, in the audience, not on the panel. The panelists know, in the audience. Good. So the Freedom Center, just for those of you who did not raise your hands, we are the Power Systems and Power Electronics Research Center within the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. Freedom is an acronym, Future Renewable Electric Energy Delivery and Management Systems Center. And we don't make solar panels. We make it easier to connect solar panels to the grid. We don't make electric cars, but we do research on extreme fast chargers for electric vehicles, the drives within an electric vehicle that controls the flow of energy from the battery to the motor. We may make even specially designed motors. It's a really cool lab. If anybody's interested, please find me after this and we can arrange a tour. But we're over on Centennial Campus, and one of the things that we do as part of our outreach activities is to sponsor things like this as part of Energy Week. We're one of the, have a seat on the organizing committee, and so have helped with a lot of the activities this year. One more plug before I turn it over to the Student Energy Club. We're also mentors for the Solar District Cup team. Has anybody heard of that? Anybody here on the Solar District Cup that I don't recognize? Nope. Okay. So yeah, NC State participates in a collegiate competition called the Solar District Cup. You play the role of a solar developer. If you want to learn more, come see me as well. All right. But thanks everybody for being here.
Hi everybody. My name is Gavin Mode. I'm a co-president of the NC State Student Energy Club alongside with Jada West, and we are a co-sponsor of this event. We're hosting it with the intention of helping getting students connected to the energy research space, energy industry, and that is ultimately kind of just the goal of our club as a whole. At the end of the day, we'd like to connect students with some of the energy-related work that's being done on campus, get them in touch with faculty, and yeah. So if you guys would like to be a part of the club, please just talk to me at the end. Thank you.
Let's give them a hand. Thank you. So those are the organizers on campus. I am Carl Wilkins. I'll be a panelist and a moderator. And I'm going to kind of keep things moving. And we'll get the sound worked out in a minute, but it sounds a little fuzzy, but we'll be okay. And what I would like to do is kind of set up this evening what you can expect and who you'll be hearing from. And then at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So I'm going to take a little liberty of asking your forgiveness in advance. I have a hard stop at 8:30. I'm committed somewhere else. So if you see me walk out, it's not because I'm not committed nor am I bought into this. I really would like to stay. But if you see me, and these are people who are worth hearing, so please stay with them, and I'll slip out. My wife and myself, we have another commitment. But this was so important that I put off another engagement to be a part of this. And the reason why is because you can't see it. I am a NC State alum, and I have the old toughie here. I wear just kind of giving my age. So let's get into it. So what's going to happen here is going to be very rapid. We're going to keep things moving. So they've been primed, and they're ready to kind of give their responses in a quick manner so we can get everything in. And what I would do at first is just start with an introduction. You see their names on the screen, but I'll take some time to introduce them individually, just give their name and where they are. To my immediate left is Taylor Jones. There you go, wave your hand. An attorney with the Department of Energy Loans Programs Office, where she advises on legal policy matters as well as manages certain legal aspects of loan transactions. Next to her is Jeff Thomas, engineer with the NC Utilities Commission's public staff, where he advocates on behalf of electric ratepayers and matters before the commission. Next to Jeff is Bingwei Lee. He's a clean energy engineer at the Idaho National Laboratory. He came a long way, by the way, so just be kind to him. And he focuses on the technical or techno-economic assessments of innovative renewable energy systems and long-term state-level energy systems analysis. Next to Bingwei is Heather Hildebrandt. Heather works in the NC Department of Transportation, where she supervises the statewide initiatives group that oversees clean transportation and statewide multimodal planning. Okay, and last but not least, on the end there, we have Ansh Nasta. Ansh is for Principal Energy Systems Analyst at GTI Energy, where he researches and develops low-carbon energy solutions to combat climate change. So these are some very, very capable and very bright people you're going to be hearing from. So let's jump right into it. You guys ready? So we have 4 or 5 questions I'm going to ask them. They're going to answer each individually, then we'll just mix it up and keep it going. If you have questions, I would like to ask that you hold them until the end, if you're able to, unless you just can't understand what we're talking about, then we'll take clarification. So question number 1, and we'll start with you, Taylor, since you're closest, okay? Tell us about your current role and how long have you been there?
So I know you said to go quick, Carl, but then the lawyer's going to go first. So let me start by saying that I'm here tonight in my individual capacity, not as a representative of the Department of Energy, and the views I express are my own and should not be attributed to the department. Where I have worked since just July, so this is a new job that I just started in the loan programs office. Well, let me take a step back. The Loan Programs Office, as the name suggests, issues loans and loan guarantees. So as an attorney, internal counsel to the department, I work on those loan transactions. And then there are a number of sort of policy, for lack of a better word, policy-related matters that I provide legal advice and counsel on as well.
Thank you. Jeff?
So I'm a NC grad. I work for the public staff, and like I said, there's a ratepayer advocate, and so we advocate on behalf of ratepayers. If you pay Duke Energy for your power, you're a ratepayer on matters before the commission, and that can be wide-ranging. We talk about energy efficiency programs, new generation permits, long-range planning and modeling, and then rate recovery when Duke or other utilities come in to raise their rates. We review that application in detail and make recommendations to the commission. And then we have to defend those recommendations in sworn testimony before the commission. So me personally, I work mostly on modeling. So I look at the long-range energy plan, the carbon plan, evaluate those resources and Duke's assumptions and methodologies, and then I make those recommendations to the commission for changes or modifications that we think better protect ratepayers.
Thank you, Jeff. Bing-Hui?
So yes, my name is Bing-Hui Lee. I'm a clean energy engineer at Idaho National Lab. So I joined Idaho National Lab around 3 years ago. So that's in November 2020. And my role there is mainly focused on research and proposal writing. So Department of Energy is actually our largest funding agency. And we also apply fundings from other state or federal agencies such as NSF or like Department of Defense, but they have a smaller budget. My work, is mainly about paper publications, research, and I think one of the most primary role is to secure fundings. So that's, if I want to get promoted, then I have to get a lot of fundings.
Thank you, Bing-Hui. Heather?
Sure. My name is Heather Hildebrandt, also an NC State grad. I've been working for the Department of Transportation for 10 years. I'm currently a engineering supervisor over transportation planning. Even though transportation planning plans for all modes of transportation, my group is a little bit unique in that we do statewide planning. So we don't do it just on a local level, we do it for the entire state. My prior job was also for the state. I worked for the Division of Air Quality in mobile source compliance. So I've been working in transportation and air quality my entire career. Some of the things that are most interesting right now that we are working on is, unlike some of the other parts of DOT, we actually have money that we give out in grants. So we work on a program called the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program, which provides funding to reduce emissions from mobile sources in the transportation sector. There's a new program that came out of the new infrastructure bill which is a carbon reduction program, which is focusing again on reducing carbon emissions from the transportation sector. And then probably the biggest one which keeps me up at night right now is my group oversees the deployment of the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. We call it NEVI. It's a whole lot easier, which is basically installing all the electric vehicle charging infrastructure needed in the state to make sure that we move towards clean transportation. And then the only other thing that I would like to mention also is, our current administration has been very supportive of clean transportation, several executive orders. So I have been very involved in planning for how we're going to move towards electric vehicles, whether it be light duty vehicles, medium and heavy duty vehicles, and how we're going to clean up transportation in general. So that's my passion, and I'm moving on to the next person.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm a Principal Energy Systems Analyst at GTI Energy. GTI Energy is a company based out of Chicago, and what we do is we research, develop, and deploy different kinds of energy technologies. So historically, GTI Energy was focused on natural gas, but now we've diversified to hydrogen, biogas, and any other kind of low carbon fuels, including sustainable aviation fuels. My role specifically is in the strategy team, which is the strategic analytics team at GTI Energy. And the projects that I work on are kind of quite related to what some of us may study at the master's level. So I do a lot of like net zero modeling, looking at pathways to net zero by 2050 for the United States. So how can we decarbonize and help fight climate change? Then looking at what kind of infrastructure needs to be built to help make this net zero dream a reality. A third project is looking at hydrogen emissions. So while everyone is really excited about hydrogen and we want to use it everywhere we can, we need to be careful with how we use it because there are some negative climate impacts of hydrogen emissions as well as of methane emissions. And we need to make sure that any kind of leakage is nipped in the bud before as we scale up the industry. And finally, I'm also working on a lot of bioenergy projects because there are a lot of applications that we cannot decarbonize, we cannot electrify easily, such as aviation. So we need to come up with other kinds of low carbon fuels to help decarbonize these hard to electrify sectors. And yeah, I've been at GTI Energy over a year now, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Thank you. So let's jump into the next question I have is, of all the things you could be doing, how did you find yourself in energy, and when did you know, or if you know, that's the right place for you? Okay, so instead of going in order, anybody want to take that on first? Heather, go ahead and jump in.
So I went to grad school. First, let me take it one step back. My undergrad is also from NC State, mechanical engineering. Are there any mechanical engineers in the room other than Ken? Okay, good. Senior year, you have to take an engineering ethics class. Terrified me. Did not want to go into mechanical engineering. So I decided that they had just started the engineering program in environmental. I said, this sounds great, environmental, plan for the future. So I went to master's and got my master's degree in environmental engineering. Then there was a downturn in the economy, and you took the first job you got. The first job I got was with the Division of Air Quality, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to work for the Division of Air Quality. That was my focus in school, was air quality modeling. I soon realized I didn't really love modeling, but the first job I got was in mobile source compliance. And I was doing grants and knew nothing about giving out grants, knew nothing about alternative fuels, knew nothing about vehicles in general. But I loved it, and it was very, it was fun having the purse strings and being able to give money and seeing that there's going to be a difference. One of the things I just want to add before I move it on to someone else is I've been with the state for 27 years, doing alternative fuel vehicles for 27 years, and every year they say it's 5 years out. It's 5 years. In 5 years we'll have the technology. We're going to adopt it. It's going to be 5 years out. I'm towards the end of my career. And with the investment that we have right now from the federal government, I think we probably are 5 years out. So I'm glad to hopefully be able to see it come to fruition, as I wrap up my career.
Anyone else want to follow Heather? Go ahead, Ox.
Yeah, I can go next. I'm originally from Mumbai, India, and when I was in high school, I was really part of the environmental movement. So I was part of the environmental clubs in school, tried to do things like waste cleanups at the beach, waste management within the school, initiatives to improve sparrow populations. And so when I went to college, I was very focused on environmental engineering. However, I didn't really like chemistry or biology, and I realized that I was really interested in clean energy. And at that time, most of the energy research in my university was happening in the mechanical engineering department. And that's why I decided to do mechanical engineering. And I did a lot of research in the energy sector on the side. I tried to participate in other kind of energy projects that I could in my university, whether that was for the university itself or even in other countries like Cambodia. And I got a couple of energy internships in India, decided to get a master's in energy from Carnegie Mellon University in Pennsylvania. And after I graduated, I got a job in the energy sector. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to be doing what I'm passionate about, and I've been doing energy stuff for around 10 years now.
Good, Big Way. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I got my college degree from China, and I can start from there. And you know, it's more like mechanical engineering and lab work. You know, it's all about thermal engineering and heat transfer, thermodynamics, those type of thing. And the reason why I choose energy as my career is that because we had a student research program in my college, and what we did is to design a micro-scale solar thermal collector. So it's like a mirror, concentrated solar mirror, and reflect solar power to generate superheated steam. So that's a pretty cool design, and we won an outstanding prize in the national contest. So that's how I developed my interest in energy. And then I come to the US to pursue my graduate degree. And I actually find my advisor in the civil engineering department. And what he does is doing, energy system optimization model. So that's what I'm doing now. And my PhD thesis here is focused on energy system and the electricity markets. So that's one switch. And then I did my postdoc in another professor's group, and their major focus is in electricity market and like forecasting of renewable power. So like solar and wind power forecasting. So that's kind of like another switch. And then when I finished my postdoc, it's COVID. So all hiring is freezed, and I just got a few offers from like industry and national labs. I cannot go industry because of my foreign status. That's kind of bad planning. So that's why I stay in national lab, which is kind of cool because my postdoc, their group is also funded largely by DOE. So it's kind of have the same sponsor. So that's pretty much my story.
That's pretty good.
Sure. In 2009, I graduated from University of Illinois with my undergrad, and that was a bad time to graduate. And my degree was literally called general engineering, so it didn't have a real focus. So I took a job in manufacturing operations and kind of by default. And so I enjoyed it. It was kind of interesting, building widgets, managing inventory, but it never really grabbed me. And by the time I was 5 or 6 years into it, I was thinking to myself, I can't do this for another 20 years. Even though there was plenty of opportunity for advancement and I was doing all right, it just didn't feel like a career I'd be happy in. So at the time, I was working at a factory down by Wilmington, and we were building big electrical switchgear, so big cabinets to distribute medium voltage, so big copper bus bars and wiring, all this intricate wiring, and just very interesting to me, and troubleshooting the problems that we got. We'd get back these vacuum contactors that had blown up and they were charred and sooted, and we have to try to figure out why it broke, what happened, and all that just kind of piqued my interest in energy and electricity especially, and so decided that to take the leap, and I went back to NC State for the environmental engineering masters, and that's when I worked with Bing Wei and Joe DeCarolis as my advisor. I took up some research at the Freedom Center, looking at some of that equipment and doing energy modeling with Joe's team. And it was just very interesting. I was captivated by the modeling and analyzing the inputs and looking for trends and trying to pull insights out of all these complex models. So it was just really grabbed me. And after that, the public staff has been really exposed me to literally every aspect of electrical and energy regulation. So it's been a really incredible, for me, a transformation over the last 6 years.
Thank you, Jeff. Now, Taylor, before we let you speak, if I'm not mistaken, you're the only non-engineer on the panel, and you're the only. All right. Well, let's get into it. Let's go ahead. But I just want to point out that you don't have to be an engineer.
That's right.
To be in the energy space, right? Here's a perfect example, and you even can be an attorney and be in the same room with the engineer, which usually don't mix well. But let's hear about your story.
So I actually started pursuing an engineering degree in undergrad, and I got 2.5 or 3 years into that degree program before I decided I didn't think I wanted to be an engineer. So I was pursuing environmental engineering, and at the time I thought I might want to go to law school. I decided to change my major. Your GPA is very important to law school, slightly less important. At least at the time, it was slightly less important to, getting a job as an engineer. So I have a bachelor's in science and not an engineering degree, but I took physics in college, so I know a little bit of your pain. And I was always interested in environmentalism, and then I think just as a nerd, if that's safe to say, I was interested in energy as sort of a kind of meaty and interesting and industrial application of my interest in environmentalism, and I just always had an interest in what were these really thorny, big, important problems that needed a lot of people to apply their expertise to problem solve, and so just stuck with that through law school and practicing.
Okay, so we're going to switch topics. Ken? Why did I get energy? Notice I'm avoiding myself, right? So I got an energy because I've always had a value for the environment. I've always been one who's been efficient. And then when I came out of school, at the time, the local utility here in Raleigh, North Carolina, made me a very attractive offer. And I said, this is great. I can make money doing something I like, and that's when I got in the utility space. And I did that for almost 2 decades. Today, I'm doing consulting or advisory work, and I lead a team of people. And our team, our guys and gals, ladies and gentlemen, excuse me, they help build the largest wind and solar farms in the world today. And they're doing all of the studies and the modeling that is required. And I found that fascinating. From a practical point of view, I found out that energy is something that everyone wants and needs. It's a pretty secure area. It's not subject to market whims in most cases. And I found out that it's a growing area. So it made a lot of sense to me, for me and my family, to find a job in an area that I could be doing something exciting, challenging, yet with a lot of security. And if you're in today's world, you know that energy is one of the most talked about areas today. I was telling Ms. Helling at the table, we were saying the 2 largest emitters of carbon in the world today. This is a quiz for you guys, see if you're listening. Two industry segments. Can someone name me the largest emitter of carbon? Not you guys. Shh, be quiet up here. Anybody? I'll give you, it begins with T. T-R-A-N. S. Transportation. There we go. Second one. You know what the second largest emitter? Manufacturing, close, but you're close. But production of electricity. Yes. And they come together in a 4-wheel device begin with a T. Tesla. So that's where the 2 industries cross. And this is why I'm in energy, because it's exciting, it's challenging, and they'll tell you more about it. But you're seeing the combination of both energy and transportation here today. So thank you for asking the question, sir. All right. Question number 3, trick question. Now that you got this great primo job, what's so great about it, or what can be so frustrating about what you're doing in your job? Who wants to share with that? All right, Taylor.
I don't know that I would say this is my greatest frustration with the practice of law, but whenever anyone asks me, do I think they should become a lawyer, I like to point out that providing legal services is a client service-oriented industry. So you are doing customer service in your job every day, and that is just as true in the sort of in-house counsel roles that I have had as it was when I was working in a private firm and, you know, some private industry was my client and they were like, you know, directly paying my bill every month. Whether that's the way you're providing legal services or you're providing them internally to your colleagues and your boss, it's client service. So it's important to know whether you'll be comfortable playing that role if you think you're interested in law school. And if anyone wants to talk more about that, I'm happy to do so, but it is first and foremost customer service.
Thank you. Anyone else? Jeff?
Sure. So I'll start with the most rewarding part of my job. So I do a lot of analysis and technical stuff and testifying and writing, a lot of writing and reading. But I also have to deal with the public. So we have a consumer services division, people who have just general questions about the energy field, or they have a problem with their bill or their net metering arrangement. They'll call us and we get responses within a day from an engineer. So that's probably one of the most rewarding parts of my job. I get to call consumers and they're frustrated with something, and I can try to explain it to them in a way that they really makes them understand, and maybe they're still mad, but at least they get it now, or maybe I get to help resolve a billing issue or just provide general information. And I really like that aspect of my job, that interacting with the public. Probably one of the more frustrating parts of my job, and I was going to say shoddily written legislation, but if you are an attorney and you're interested, you should get into it, because there's always more need there.
That's true.
I think we work on so many things, and the landscape is changing so often, and so when I kind of look back over the years, there's some dockets or proceedings where I just spent so much time on it and really worked in it, and really put my heart into the comments and the testimony I filed, and maybe even won the issue that I wanted. And then when it actually gets enacted, this program it fails, or it doesn't work, or it doesn't attract the response that I expected. And sometimes you kind of feel that the moment has passed and the regulatory space wasn't able to react quickly enough. So that's one of the more frustrating parts. Those things take time, and everything takes time to change.
Yeah, I think I can go next. So, as a research engineer, I think the most rewarding part of my job is seeing your outcomes, like research outcomes, get recognized. So that's when you have a good publication, or when your proposal has been funded. So that's the rewarding part. But the most rewarding part is to see, the project that I PI'd, I lead, and my colleague, my postdoc. So actually, they published a publication, and with my assistance. So I think that's the most rewarding part from my research. And the most frustrating part, I think, is the opposite of that. Like, you see your proposal get rejected, or your papers get rejected. So that's pretty frustrating. And the other frustrating part is that when you, in the process of working, kind of doing all the paper reading and the writing, you can see the results that you want, or the result turns out to be not the way that you want. So that's the most frustrating thing in research. So I think this is from a research perspective.
I guess I'm next, so we're going to go down the line. So I think I'll echo a little bit of what Taylor said. I mean, I've been working for the state my entire career. Customer service is paramount. All of you guys who are here right now are my customers. So interacting with the public is one of the most rewarding things. Seeing that or feeling like I'm making a difference. Again, I'm a little bit maybe altruistic or what have you, but my focus was on air quality, not to disparage any of the other environmental fields, but we all have to breathe. We may be able to bottle water, we may be able to import food from somewhere else, but we all have to breathe. So thinking that I'm making a difference and making a future better for my children, for all of you, is kind of one of the rewarding things that I'm doing, and feeling like I am making a difference. Probably the most frustrating thing is working for a governmental entity is probably politics. So, if you've got a supportive legislature or a governor or whomever, then, realizing that you have your job and you're going to continue to do your job regardless of the administration, but understanding that sometimes that administration is not going to be supportive of that mission can be frustrating. So trying to navigate those changing political climates can be a little disheartening when you feel like you've made progress and then there's an election. And you're like, okay, well, I already know we're not going to be able to do what we've been doing. So having to, and then the other thing to realize that with government in general is you want to be nimble, but we can't. So it's not like the private industry where you can kind of like shift on a dime or change directions. It is like a freight liner where it just kind of, you have to look at the far vision and keep course correcting as you go. So it's a little bit frustrating, but I've stuck with it, so the rewards outweigh them.
So like many people have already mentioned here, I think the most rewarding part of my job is really feeling like the work I'm doing can make a difference in terms of helping decarbonize the energy sector and fight climate change. But what frustrates me is sometimes just understanding how long these things take. So when we're in college, and I've been out of college just 3 years now, we're used to projects just being 3 months long. And then when you go out in the real world and the project's going to be like, oh, this is a 30-year project, if it happens with energy projects all the time, or even a 3-year project, and just like even try to understand, again, grapple with this, it can be a little frustrating at times to be like, oh, why is this moving so slowly? Like in college, everything moves so quickly. So that's something personally I've struggled with, not just at GTI, but in general in my career so far.
Okay, we're going to bring it down to level they may encounter here in the room. Knowing what you know now, right? A little experience, 1 or 2 or 30 years. What do you know now that you wish you had known in college? Okay.
You can go first.
Go ahead, Hans. Yeah.
So when I went to college, I would say back then, there was a real obsession with university rankings and what major you got from a high-ranked university. And I went to a university that was decently ranked, and I chose a tough major, mechanical engineering. And back then, I was like, okay, this should guarantee me getting a job or guarantee getting me any grad program I want to. And when I was graduating, I realized that that was completely untrue. And what really matters is the skills you have, and what matters what you do during those 3 or 4 years of college and eventually grad school. So focus on developing skills. Don't care about your university or your program's rankings. Don't worry about not having the right major to get the right job you want, because people of all different majors can end up with different kinds of jobs.
He's got the nail on the head. I mean, not to say that what you're studying right now is not important. It is. I think, but realizing that it is just as likely that you will not be doing something that is in your major as if you are, is something you need to realize. Because and realizing again that you're never going to stop learning. And so don't think that this is the end of the road, or that this is, oh, I got the diploma, I'm done. But I think one of the things that I wish that they had said or that they had taught more or focused on more in school was just how important it is to be flexible. Like to realize that you're going to have to work with people who have differing opinions and views than what you do. And that oftentimes you can come to consensus or agreement if you know how to message things to your audience. So I wish that there was more understanding of there needs to be a class on know who your audience is. Because if you're in the environmental field, which I assume most of you guys are probably going to be somewhat interested in that, you're going to be dealing with people who say, oh, the environment's bad, it costs money. But you can message it where, sustainability, for instance. I was working for the government at one point where we weren't allowed to use the word sustainability. Does anyone know what sustainability means? Okay. Is it a bad word? It can be a win-win. So recognizing where those win-wins are can be something that I wish I had learned in college because it's every day. Every day is realizing how we can all come together, and I can say, well, if all you care about is money, I can show you how what we're doing is going to save you money. If what you care about is decarbonizing the energy sector, then I can tell you what we're doing is going to accomplish that. And realizing that there doesn't have to be a winner, we can all win. So,
This is fascinating, Heather. I'll just jump in for a second. I've been at this for a couple of decades now. One thing I've learned, because now what I do, my rewarding part of my job is that I get to start careers for young people. I probably have 20 NC State graduates in my team. And I do a lot of the interviewing. And I get to see young, bright minds, energetic. And one thing I remind them is that you have to work on your hard skills, which are the technical skills, and your soft skills, which are the communication, interpersonal skills. They're just as important in the industry you're getting in, because you've heard there are a lot of different opinions. A lot of people may agree or disagree with you, and it's very important that you have good communication skills. So I appreciate you bringing that and being very honest with our audience in that area. Who wants to go next with what do you know now?
Yeah, let me just follow the order. If I were to tell myself, like a younger Minghui 10 years ago, what you should do, I would say plan early and act fast. That's what I would say to me at that time. I can share my stories with you. So basically, during my, I think, senior year, I got an offer from Bosch, a German company. It's an internship, a semester internship. But what I don't know is that it's conflicting with my thesis design the whole semester. So I have to, because thesis is kind of required to graduate. So I have to reject that offer. And that's kind of frustrating because that offer is very competitive. A lot of people apply for that. But I have to reject that. So the reason, I think is because that I don't plan early, and I didn't see that coming. So if I were to tell myself like 10 years ago, plan early and see what you want to do and act fast, seize the opportunity, and you'll go right where you want. So that's what I would tell myself 10 years ago.
Excellent. Jeff?
Learn to code, I guess. I think, all kidding aside, I think my experience is that even if you're on a concentrated major, you're trying to focus on a single thing, don't be afraid to try to go outside of that major to learn something else. I was randomly taking chemistry classes in undergrad or strange policy classes in my graduate school. But you're never going to have you may, but most jobs are going to intersect a lot of different things. You're going to have to work with attorneys and accountants policy people and engineer people, and if you can have like, yeah, I took a class on on law or civil law or something like that in undergrad, you can relate to those people and understand that aspect of the role a little bit better. Or anything you can learn or tie what you're learning into to what's going on in the real world, right? How does this stuff actually play out in the real world, and how can I learn a little bit more about that to make it more applicable? But also learning to code. I think it's I wish I had learned to code and focused on it more in my undergrad. There's so many little things you can do and speed up and automate tasks with it, and I wish I had more of that knowledge to bring into my role now.
It's not too late, Jeff.
Yeah.
Even I was in Code Academy, struggling in Code Academy at night or in COVID. Taylor?
I would say to take other people's advice about your career path with a grain of salt. When I was, I think 2.5 years, maybe 3 years into my engineering degree program and decided to change my major because I wanted to go to law school, I don't think a single person that I reached out to for advice thought that that was a good idea. And I did it anyway. But so, I mean, even attorneys, law school professors at my undergraduate institution, I don't think I ever got one clear like, oh, that's great, you want to go to law school, here's how you can think about making this transition, until I started applying to law schools and getting accepted to law schools. And then a number of those people changed their tune. And I think that's human nature and, sort of understandable in hindsight, but I just tell that to all of you to say, if you feel confident and certain in what you want to do it. You're the person that has to do it every day. And it's very common, I think you hear lawyers all the time say, oh, don't go to law school, you're gonna regret it. We all regret it. Every lawyer I know regrets it. But actually good advice that I have heard a handful of times, if rarely, is go to law school if you want to practice law. And if anyone had told that to me in college, that would have decided the question for me. I did want to practice law and I was interested in that. So yeah, my advice would just be grain of salt. You know what you're interested in, you know what your strengths are, and other people are speaking from their experience, which will be different from your own.
So this has been very, very good and informative, and thank you all for being very transparent and open about your career and your aspirations. I'm gonna look at the organizers of the team. We're getting closer to our end. Do we want to stop and take questions now? I've got one more question. What do we want to do? We'll take some questions now? Okay, we're gonna open it up to the floor, the questions, and if you don't have any questions, I have one more, but I think it's all fairness. I would love to hear. You've been very polite and listening. Now here's your chance to ask some questions. And there's someone in the back of the room that has a mic. And if you raise your hand, they'll come to you, and we can hear everyone in the room can hear your question. Anyone with a question? There's one right in front, middle.
Hi there. My question is for Taylor. So I'm not an engineering student either. I'm a political science student, and I'm very interested in energy, but more so on the policy side. And I don't have any ambition to practice law. So I have, I guess, like a two-part question. You mentioned in your introduction you work vaguely on policy. I was just curious as to like what specifically you're working on right now. And secondly, what pathways are there into something like the DOE or other government agencies for someone not interested in practicing law but still wanting to do energy policy?
Yeah, I would say particularly somewhere massive, right? Like we were talking about like DOE, the lawyers at DOE, the attorneys, the licensed attorneys, they are practicing law. But every employee of the agency is making policy just by virtue of going to work every day and implementing the laws of the United States and doling out the funding or whatever else it may be. So policy is just such a broad word, and so a lot of what I do that is, maybe legal advice within the department is really sort of policy in nature. So just sort of advising on, even our own internal policies for how we're going to operate, how we're going to stay organized, and how we're going to run. That's policy. There's no shortage of ways to play a role in shaping policy, and of course I think government is a great place to do that. I really hesitate to tell anyone who might be interested in going to law school that it's a bad idea. I think one thing law school is really great about is giving you a skill set and a way to think about solving problems. I don't think you will ever regret having that knowledge. It's a very expensive education, so there's pros and cons, but I think it's a wonderful education if you feel like it's something you can take advantage of. I would never tell anyone that I think that is a mistake or a bad idea.
I'll just echo right here. I mean, working as another governmental employee, we have, like when we were developing the Clean Transportation Plan, the person who was leading that effort was a policy person. We had many engineers who were working on it to help talk about the actual nuts and bolts of how the technologies or things like that, but really having somebody who has a skill set, not that we don't have the skill set of bringing people together, but we're engineers. We don't necessarily have a skill set of bringing people together. So, if you want to have, I would encourage you to make sure that you are good at, I'm not an extrovert. Being an extrovert helps. Being able to talk to people you don't know helps. Being able to, develop relationships helps. But there are positions within all levels of government for somebody who doesn't want to practice law, but wants to inform policy.
So when I was in grad school, I focused on energy policy. Despite coming from an engineering background, I was very interested in the policy world. And I did spend a year working in DC for a think tank called Energy Futures Initiative, EFI. And I would say everyone who was at that company was from different backgrounds. There were very few of us who actually had energy, engineering, or policy backgrounds. There were people with international relations backgrounds, there were people with more humanities backgrounds, business backgrounds, economics backgrounds. There's scope for everyone in the policy world. There's no set path to get a policy job.
Are there any more questions? That's a great question. Yeah, your neighbor.
Yeah, works out. I actually just had a pretty, general question for anyone who wants to answer it. I think sustainability and the concept of environmental conservation in energy is a really unique space, and it can often be kind of tough and controversial at times. And I know one of the largest things that people talk about and industry talks about is the concept of reliability in bringing environmental ideals into the energy department and industry, and I just kind of wanted to know how any of you navigate that concept of reliability and sustainability in your field.
I can talk a little bit about that. I mean, so I work a lot on the carbon plan, which is trying to decarbonize net zero or carbon neutrality by 2050. But the law also puts a provision in there for reliability, right? So we have to try to figure out if all these resources that we're adding over time to become more sustainable, more renewable, and cleaner are going to impact the reliability. And there's all sorts of complicated ways people look at it, from doing thousands of model runs and estimating the likelihood that we'll have another Christmas Eve event, to looking at siting and community engagement, and how are we able to secure this much land for solar? Are we going to be able to build this transmission? And so it's definitely heavily intersected, both of those things, as it's always a concern as you move away from these kind of more dispatchable resources that you'll have reliability issues. But these are issues that can be fixed, can be addressed. They just need a little bit of extra time and attention, and people that are interested in seeing how they intersect and trying to devise solutions, both technical and non-technical.
And I would say that a grid supported by a diverse array of resources is definitionally more reliable.
Good question. Any other questions? We're going to stick with that one table until they run out of questions, I guess.
Hello. So my question is mainly towards Dr. Lee, or anybody that's in research or ever did research, do you guys recommend for undergraduates to get involved in research to see what the energy field is like before going into graduate school or into the workforce, I suppose?
Yes, simple answer is yes. So we do have many research opportunities for both undergraduate and graduate students. So actually, our department just had a undergraduate intern, and he did an excellent job. He did hydropower modeling, and I think he's from BYU in Salt Lake City, and when he left, he actually presented his work to us. So that's pretty nice. And I think DOE also have a lot of funding opportunities for undergraduate and graduate students. So you can apply for those fundings, and you can go to any national labs. That depends on your interest. For example, if you are interested in nuclear engineer, our lab is one of the best in the US. And if you are interested in power systems or electricity market, you can go to National Renewable Energy Lab or Argonne National Lab or Berkeley Lab. So they do have different focuses and research priorities. The other thing I would encourage you is if you are interested in internships or even full-time opportunities at national labs, you can go to DOE websites and see. I think you can subscribe to their newsletters. They have pretty nice newsletters about opportunities, research advances, and frontiers. So for those, this is also for the general public. If you feel interested in the energy industry, you can subscribe to their newsletters. So that's probably a little more than what you need, but I think this is should be a good answer.
I'm going to jump in real quick. I would just say the answer is yes. Anyone who's in this room right now who doesn't know how to do research needs to learn. Because regardless of what job you have, well, I can't speak for all jobs, but in my experience, we do at DOT, we do research projects all the time. I sit on several committees because we're always trying to improve the process. So regardless of the job that we have within the DOT, you need to know how, you're not going to be given the answer. So, it may not be, as formal research as, I'm sorry, I'm bad with names. My colleague here does, but definitely being able to, find a problem, research the information, and come to a conclusion. At the fundamental, is going to be without your degree. I mean, without your question, that's something you're going to have to do. I do it on a daily basis. We're doing something, and we find out, well, how much, what are we're given a number, and we're like, does that seem reasonable? I don't know. So I need to figure out, what is the process that goes into doing this? Trying different methodologies to come up with the answer. So at the very minimum, yes, you need to be able to do that.
If I just add, if you're interested in, figuring out what this job is like and will I even enjoy this after you graduate? Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds kind of weird, but if you go to LinkedIn and type in energy policy analyst, you'll get thousands of people with that role. And if you send out enough messages, somebody will get back to you, right? Or if you find research papers that you thought were well written, you usually can contact one of the authors and you can start up a conversation. I know that's a little awkward and you're not going to get all responses, but I've had some people reach out to me and just say, hey, what do you do here? And and responded to that. So I try to do that, and some others may do that and give you a bit of a perspective as to what they're doing, and maybe that's something you like or not.
And I know that there's on the QR code, I don't think there's anything that's up there for DOT. I don't think I responded properly, apologies. But we've got internship programs, we've got summer programs, we've got things like that where you can actually try a job and see if you want to do it. Less formally than that, we've had people who have, we've had high school students who have said, I'm interested in this, can I shadow you for a week? And we've done that. We've done it, at the college level. I want to figure this out. So, there are methodologies that are out there. So yes, using LinkedIn, using the resources that you've got today, if you want to find out what it is, and that's actually doing good due diligence on your part, because I lucked out on my first job. I liked what I got. But you might not. And you might think that it's a great fit until you're actually doing it like, oh, this is not what I thought. So really getting some in-depth information as to what the day-to-day work is like. And I don't know if that was maybe our last question. I don't remember. But do you want to go to meetings all the time? Do you want to have the same thing? Like in my group, there's two sections. There's statewide planning, which is me, and then there's like local planning. I love statewide planning. You could not pay me $1 million to do local planning because all it is like the same thing over and over again. Every day my day is different, and I thrive on that. But if you don't like that, if you're a more structured person, then maybe you would, so you need to recognize what your strengths and weaknesses are and what kind of work you like to do, because there's a job out there for everybody.
Yeah, and I would echo that. So from my personal perspective, I would encourage any student to reach out to find opportunities, not only in like research, like national labs or universities, but also industries, because those experiences are valuable. That would help you to find jobs in the future. And I know that national labs, they do encourage students, even high school students, to participate in research. And I do know that from my postdoc university, they have programs for high school students in the summer, to participate in research programs.
So on a formal level, there is a thing called the research experience for undergraduates. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a annual, every year NC State hosts multiple REU cohorts in different areas. So there are formal things you can do at NC State, at other universities across the country, funded by different agencies. Good question. Any others? Just pass it around the table. Oh, wait, here we have another one.
Thank you. So with regards to your careers, and this is open to anyone, can you speak on your current ambitions? Like, is there an overarching accomplishment that you're trying to achieve or something that you're looking forward to in this field?
There's ambition. 3 years and she's ready to retire. She's been at it for like 27 years.
Since you threw me under the bus, I'll go ahead and start. So yeah, my ambition. So I don't. I'm going to use a terminology that I use within my job. So or in my work. For those of you who are familiar with governmental jobs, there are what I call terminal positions. Okay, a terminal position is one where you need to be happy with where you are because the likelihood of you being promoted is not likely, okay? I'm in what's called a terminal position right now, so I have to be happy with where I am. Is there possibility for me to advance? There is. However, you have to balance what that promotion or that advancement would garner you with what you would lose. And for me, if I were to be promoted, I would end up having more of the bureaucracy, the meetings and things like that, and not being able to do, actively participate in making the change that I want to see happen. So my goal is to be exactly where I am for the next 3 years or more, and hopefully continue to move forward these initiatives. So, like I said, I think I maybe am the oldest one career-wise on the panel. For 27 years, I have been in alternative fuels in the transportation sector. My goal is to see that actually move forward, and I am finally getting to the point where I think that's going to happen. And I will say that right now this panel, a lot of the focus is on electrification, support it. But I also don't want the focus to be on only electrification because I think, as you talked about, there's natural gas, there's renewable, there's biofuels, there's a lot of things that are out there. And for those of you who are in the transportation and the energy sector, moving from gasoline and diesel, which we are all very comfortable with, knowing how it works and operates, there's never going to be another fuel, at least in my lifetime, that is going to replace aviation You know, there's limitations. You talk about, you know, electrifying light-duty vehicles. We know how to do it. There might be some grid, you know, issues, but we know how to do it. Medium and heavy duty, it becomes more complicated. Moving to things like airplanes, moving to things like these large seagoing vessels, it becomes difficult. So all that to say is, yes, I love what I'm doing. My goal is to continue to do it for as long as I'm happy doing it. And hopefully in 5 years, I'll actually be at the finish line.
So who else has like ambition?
I've been working deep on the carbon plan, and it's something I'm invested in. And in fact, I was, you know, full disclosure, I accepted a role outside of the public staff and was intending to resign to go to do research when the carbon plan was passed, when the law was passed. And I saw what it was, and I saw what it would mean for the public staff and for the state, and I had to stay. So awkwardest position ever to undo a resignation, but they accepted me back. I've been happy to be there, and I hope to be able to get us to that interim compliance. I don't think I'll be at the public staff in 2050, but hopefully sometime in the 2030 or early 2030s we can get to that 70% carbon reduction, and I'll be happy to shepherd that along the way.
I like that you said the 2050 too, because that's you know, I think I mentioned I do planning. I do long-range planning. So 2050 is our horizon. I will not be working at 2050. But to be able to, you know, do that and to make sure that we're putting in the wheels in motion to get to those goals, I mean, that is an ambition. So I think that's 2030, I'm with you. I can get there. But 2050, I won't be here. So
I'll say I know that I did have in law school an idea of what I would do first and for how long, and then what that would set me up to do next, and how long I might do that, and what that would set me up to do next. I had that. I could not even tell you now what that was. I think like 2 weeks into my first job, I was like, oh, never mind. You know, everything about that I have to throw out and just start over and take every potential opportunity, you know, with a fresh perspective. But I have never thought about an end goal like job or a place that I would be. Every time I've made a change in my career, it has been because there was a problem that I learned about, I became aware of because of whatever role I had that maybe was a little bit more interesting than the problem I had been working on in that job. Or I just saw, you know, okay, this is what I'm able to accomplish in this role, but I'm not able to make an impact past this barrier of this other problem. Well, maybe I could go work on that other problem. So that has been sort of my motivating factor always, is what's interesting that I think needs to be solved that I hopefully feel I could contribute to. And I think that makes for more interesting work than like, I hope I have that office in the corner of that floor by the time I'm whatever age.
Thank you so much for the great insights today. So I'm sure all of you must have had these dinner table conversations about AI, ChatGPT, because it's so trending. So I just want to hear your views around this with the context of energy, because we know ChatGPT consumes a lot of water for every search or whatever. So what are your views or initial thoughts, and what do you think the default trajectory of energy would be with such rapid advancing technology changes every day?
I can start. So I mean, I know that. So we at the public staff, we're a state agency. We are not on the right now on the cutting edge of AI. But I will tell you that the utilities, right? The grid is what they call the eighth wonder of the world, or whatever. One of the greatest engineering feats that have ever been created. but it's getting more complex, right? You have variable resources, storage, and different types of conductors and new transformers and all these equipments that are now communicating with each other. And I know that the utility is starting to roll out AI and some of their tools to make faster, better decisions, to restore power, to cycle power, to dispatch plants. So I think that that's probably a place where it's going to show up is anywhere where you've got humans making decisions, but you could be making more optimal decisions that consider, humans just making a decision in the moment, but a computer with AI, could run 1,000 stochastic model runs and figure out what's the optimal decision to make right now, all like that. And so integrating that a little more into the control of our grid and our resources, I think is probably inevitable, restoring power and stuff like that. So I'd be excited to see what happens there and how it can kind of better manage some of the integrated renewables that we need to do.
Can add from my experience. So basically, I think the question is about how AI or data science can have impact on the energy industry. So, there are a lot of impacts going on. For example, one of my previous research is focused on forecasting, and our group were using machine learning and deep learning to forecast solar and wind power. And it turns out it is actually outperformed traditional ways like numerical weather simulation and other kinds of, in certain time scales. So, and I know that some electricity operators are actually using those kinds of forecasts in their operations. So that's one example. And the other one is that the project that I was leading is using learning-based algorithm to create digital twin. It's like digital replica of the actual systems of actual energy systems. And we were using a machine learning-based engine to simulate the actual evolution of the system. So that's one example of the application of possible application of AI used in the energy industry. And there are, of course, many, many more. Like I recall from my readings, they are using reinforcement learning to do control and to do decision making for fusion. So that's one cutting edge research right now. But you can see that AI has been used and will be used in the energy industry in the foreseeable future.
This is not what you asked, but I'll take this opportunity to mention, I think it's really smart when you're starting out in your career to find areas to focus on and work in that are sort of new or rapidly changing, in part because the fact that you aren't bringing decades of experience is less relevant because this is like a brave new world for everyone who's focusing on whatever it is, but perhaps more importantly because bringing a fresh perspective to a problem can be really invaluable in what's needed to solve it, as opposed to approaching it with, well, this is how we have done X for 30 years, and why is that not working on, whatever this new thing we're focusing on is. I have tried to do that where I could and think it has served me well, so I'll just add that.
I'd like to jump in with what Taylor said here, that working on new things is quite important. So 10 years back when I was in high school, people made fun of me for caring about the environment and working on environmental stuff. It wasn't seen as a cool thing to do, but now that's a cool thing to do. Being in the energy sector, people are like, oh wow, that's a cool thing, you're working on like the most up and coming thing. I was like, yeah, maybe 10 years ago you should have supported me instead of making fun of me.
Well, I hate to do this, but it's like way past time when we were supposed to stop. But these have been great questions, and I think your last question was really about the kind of the pace of change of technology. There's some statistic, I'm totally gonna murder it, but it's like 50% of the jobs in 10 years don't exist today, like just the job titles, right? So things are changing rapidly. We didn't know 5 years ago that we had to worry about energy consumption for artificial intelligence, right? We didn't really have it. We didn't know 20 years ago that data centers were going to be massive loads on the energy grid. Anybody ever been to a data center? Huge, right? It's like football fields of computers inside a big building, all with air conditioning. Crazy. We didn't have those years ago until all you guys jumped on Facebook and Instagram. But so the point is, things are changing rapidly, right? So the ability to be nimble to, I mean, you mentioned flexibility, Heather, thank you. I think that's one of the best pieces of advice you're going to get, best pieces of advice you will get today. Well,
takeaway is to be nimble, be flexible, be open to change. Don't be hard and fast, because I mean, in my nearly 30-year career, I've the pace of technology, the pace of data that we're being inundated with on a daily basis from all sectors is just. I went to college. We didn't have cell phones.
oh,
That
was a long time ago.
it's been a while ago. I started work and we were still, we did have computers, okay, but we used typewriters a lot. It's just, we didn't have sound cards in our computers because there was nothing to listen to. So the pace of technology, the pace of data, we're going to have to start relying upon that. Data storage. Do you remember floppy disks? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to get. We're going to sound like grandparents. Okay. I don't want that to happen.
So it just goes to say that there are problems that we're seeing now because there is a paradigm shift, and it's just to say that there will be solutions, and you guys are going to come up with those solutions. Continue to look for those solutions. Continue to look for changing better. Don't be too disheartened that right now it's not perfect, because I think what's that saying, the biggest impediment towards progress is worrying about perfection. So don't worry about perfection, worry about going in the proper direction towards making the change that you desire.
And thus endeth the panel. Let's give a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you, everyone, for coming. See you later. And I don't know if there's any food left. Feel free to grab some before you go. Thank you.